Hello and welcome again to Immigration News and Views. My name is David Nachman and I'm one of the managing attorneys at the NPZ Law Group. In a previous segment of our Immigration News and Views, I had mentioned that I was on a recent delegation to the U.S. Consulate office in India, offices in India, and I had an opportunity to meet with high-level managers in the U.S. Consulate offices in Mumbai, Chennai, and in New Delhi, and I brought back some great information which I'd like to share with you. Before I do that, I just want to remind you that the NPZ Law Group is a full-service immigration and nationality law firm with offices located in northern New Jersey and Ridgewood. We also have an office located in New York City in Midtown, and we also have affiliated offices in Canada and also in Mumbai. And with that, what I'd like to do is talk to you a little bit about some of the information that I received at the U.S. consulates in India when I was there. And I think the most important thing for our viewers to know is that this information which I'm sharing doesn't just apply to the U.S. consulates in India. It also applies to consulates throughout the world. I think that one of the things which I have certainly seen over the years is that the visa office of the U.S. Department of State is really striving for consistency in the processing procedures that they're undertaking at the U.S. consulates throughout the world. It used to be, when we were doing consular processing, that I used to say, well, you know, when you do consular processing, it's almost like you're processing in different courts, or you're filing in different courts in the United States, and every single court has a different procedure. Well, the visa office is really striving for consistency throughout the offices in India and throughout the world. But specifically with regard to India, let me tell you what I mean by that. The offices in India, in Chennai, Mumbai, and New Delhi, they call themselves Mission India or Team India. And what they do is there's a lot of cross-fertilization that goes on. So what they're doing is they're creating a management structure whereby, depending upon the needs or demands for visas in the country, they're able to shift officers from one office to the other. So let's say, for example, they have a very high demand in Hyderabad. So they have to shift an officer from New Delhi to Hyderabad. They want to ensure that the individual who's making those determinations in Hyderabad is making the same determination in New Delhi. So many years ago, and many of you may have seen this on prior videos, my law partner Michael Pawani would say that he could be standing in between, let's say, windows separated by a couple of other windows at the U.S. consulate, and one person would make a determination of no at this window, and the same case would be presented at this window, and the answer would be yes. So this is the kind of thing that the U.S. consular officers are trying to get away from. So in what ways are they trying to get away from that? Well, one of the ways that they're doing this is that they've created a new methodology for training. So in order to ensure consistency, what they're doing is they have a mentoring type of program where individuals who come in to the U.S. consulates who are brand new go through a very rigorous training program where they have officers who have been at it for a while looking over their shoulder and working with them over, although the initial training program is about 5 weeks, the mentoring program can persist throughout the tenure of the individual at that U.S. consular office. So there's collaboration that goes on, cross-fertilization that goes on, and monthly training programs where the officers are training and speaking to each other both within offices and also from office to office. So Team India prides itself on its ability to render consistent determinations across the board. Now, as I mentioned before, there's a tremendous volume of individuals who are coming in for visa processing. The U.S. consulates in India are processing approximately 800 to 1,000 visas per day. Now, what does that mean? That means essentially that each individual who's coming in gets about 3 minutes of face time. And you would say, well, 3 minutes, how can they make their determination in 3 minutes? Well, one of the things that the U.S. consular officers do is that they do a form of pre-screening. I don't want to call it pre-screening. I think maybe pre-investigation might be the better way to do it. So there are ways, access to database, access to information, access to social media, access to the internet. Individuals in the U.S. consulate are given this access, and they're able to find out answers ahead of time. So by way of example, you could have an individual who shows up at the window who they're asked a question, do you have any family in the United States? They say no, and the U.S. consular officer says, well, we found out that your uncle, your mother, your spouse is in the United States. How do they find out this information? Well, interestingly, they have access to certain databases, and they're able to get that information. They also have a very vibrant fraud investigation unit. We were introduced to the individuals who head up the fraud units in each one of the U.S. consular offices. Unfortunately, they were reticent to share information with us about how they do their investigations, of course, but they did share with us that they do have access to a lot of information. They do go out, they do use the internet. Actually, in a couple of offices, we saw a couple of the officers in the fraud unit using social media and using the computers to make investigations. And what was also kind of interesting is that a large number of the individuals who were in those fraud units were not actually in the office because they were out in the field. So they're doing field investigations. So they're also using field investigations to garner information. So I think you've heard us say it in the past, we're going to say it again. It's best always to come clean, tell the truth, don't lie. If you lie, you're going to get yourself in trouble. So it's always best to tell the truth. If there's something which you feel is a potential blemish with regard to your visa processing abroad, we highly encourage you to speak to a qualified immigration professional who will be able to guide you and tell you what to do in order to mitigate that potential blemish. Don't sweep the blemish under the carpet. Don't put your head into a hole, and don't hide the information. It's best to bring it out and to deal with it. Okay? By way of example, if you've had some kind of a criminal interaction in the past, don't say you haven't had it. It's best to come clean, say you've had it, and then work with a qualified immigration professional to explain why that potential criminal charge was not an issue. And oftentimes when there's a dismissal, we're able to explain it away and show a disposition letter and explain it to the U.S. consular officers. So that's one of the things that we're talking about here. So basically what we see is we see this streamlined training that's going on throughout the U.S. consular offices abroad. And it's taking place, again, through a form of mentorship. So that's one of the ways in which it's also happening. Another way is that the officers are shadowing each other. So oftentimes what you might find is when you go to the window, it's not just one officer who's making the determination, but it's maybe an officer with another officer standing behind them. So, and we saw this when we were walking through the U.S. consulate. We actually got to see individuals who were interviewing on the lines. And one of the other things that they wanted the public to know, and I think it's really important to drive this home, is don't believe what you read in the blog sites. I know that all of you are reading those blog sites. You all think that there's great information on the blog sites, but the officers in the U.S. consulates, every one of them said, we also are reading those blog sites, and what we can tell you is there's a lot of really bad information on those blog sites, and those blog sites are causing a tremendous amount of agita. So they're saying, do not read the blog sites. Another thing that the officer said to us, which is really helpful practice tip, in addition to not reading the blog sites, is make sure that you're coached appropriately when you go to the U.S. consulate. So what do we mean by coaching? Well, we don't mean making up information. What we mean by coaching, what they mean by coaching, is make sure that your client understands, make sure you understand what your case is all about. So if you can go up and you can credibly articulate what it is you're coming to do in the United States and how long you're coming to do it, that's what they're looking for. And they're looking to make that determination quickly in 3 minutes so that they can move on and utilize the time that they need for harder cases. So that's what they're talking about. So I have some additional information which I look forward to sharing with you on the next segment of Immigration News and Views. I want to thank you very much for tuning in today, and we'll be back soon. Thanks very much. Talk to you soon. Bye now.